Oli here, and welcome to my review of the Moonbase, the sixth story of the fourth season of classic Doctor Who, starring Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. The Moonbase is the 33rd episode overall, 4 episodes long, and is written by Kit Pedler. Episodes 1 and 3 of the Moonbase are missing, but they were animated for a DVD release back in 2014. But obviously, telesnaps of this story, as well as most of the stories in the Patrick Troughton era, fortunately survive. So the plot of the Moonbase is as follows. In 2070, the Earth's weather is controlled with ease from the Moon. When the TARDIS arrives at the Moonbase, the Doctor, along with his friends Polly, Ben, and Jamie, are accused of starting a plague that is killing off the base's crew. It's not long, however, before the time travelers discover the true cause of the deaths. A powerful, unstoppable race that the Doctor has met before, the Cybermen. So that's the plot of the Moonbase, ladies and gents. In my opinion, the Moonbase is an excellent story and a great second outing for the Cybermen. Despite a few flaws, it's one of the best stories for season 4. The production of this story, I would say, is probably the best of season 4 so far. I liked how the moon was used and having the TARDIS land on top of it. Because the Doctor was actually wanted to take his companions to Mars, but he actually missed a few miles thanks to the gravitron, and they ended up on the moon. And obviously, I liked how the creepy atmosphere that was on display when the moon was shown, and if there were a few characters there, and obviously the creepy music playing, and obviously with the show being in black and white, it definitely helped capture the whole mood of just not only just the story, just maybe the setting of the moon as well. The sets were impressive, especially the gravitron prop, which actually almost killed Patrick Troughton when it came apart, because Troughton was standing a few feet away from the gravitron when they came apart. And I think Morris Barry, he directed this episode and he did a really good job. I think Morris Barry Morris Barry, I think this is probably one of his best stories he's directed. He used a few shots that I really liked, such as the Cybermen walking across the moon towards the Moonbase at the end of episode 3. That was a really good scene, and I liked the shots that was used, just focusing the Cybermen's feet, just marching towards the moon with Space Adventure Part 3 playing. That was some good shit. And the script was good as well. It was quite clever, and the plot was actually really good and quite clever as well. In a scientific way, it was executed very well. I thought the Cybermen infecting the Moonbase workers with the virus, with the use of the sugar that was used for coffee, and obviously some workers took the coffee with sugar, and obviously some didn't have their coffee with sugar, and then it was quite clever. I liked how they used how they showed the veins of people who were actually infected. That was creepy as hell. Even in the animation, which I get onto a bit later, I think the animation was actually more creepier than the actual live action one. And then I also liked how Polly came up with the idea, thanks to Jamie suggesting how in his day they usually spray witches with holy water, and then Polly came up with the idea of using nail varnish remover along with some other chemicals to destroy the Cybermen by throwing the nail varnish and the chemicals at their chest units. That was quite clever. Polly, she really impressed me in this story. So speaking of the Cybermen, we also get to see them for a second time with a brand new costume design, as you can see here. I would say this design is actually one of my favorites. They look awesome, and it really shows off how creepy they are. Especially with the face and all that. It's really creepy. I can just picture just a jump scare, just having like someone walk by, just have someone walking down the corridor, and then just opening a door and something, and you see this fella just about to attack you. This Cyberman design is really creepy, and I actually hope they'll be used again in Tomb of the Cybermen, but they aren't used again in Wheel in Space. They get an upgraded design, but I don't really like that design. But it does actually have that tear thingy they had and across the eyes, which you actually see in future Cybermen designs. So thanks for that. But the Cybermen, they even help with some of the cliffhangers, and I will get to that later on in this review. But I felt as if the Cybermen were actually used to their full potential here, and they were really good. I mean, if you compare to the Cybermen as they appeared in the 10th planet, because in the 10th planet, I think, obviously this is the first ever story, I mean, it was quite weird. The Cybermen were pretty much talking in a sing-song way, and I think the fact that they were more emotionless creatures was more emphasized in the 10th planet compared to the moon base. They were just the Cybermen. They just wanted to get as much as men as they can and just possess them with the virus. And obviously they're just kidnapping men and just having. I think they're trying to focus a bit more on the Cybermen being scary in this story compared to the 10th planet. Just to focus on. They did well. They were focused on their plot of Formandus as well, but I think they did emphasize a bit that the Cybermen not having any emotions in the 10th planet. Well, obviously, the fact that Cybermen have no emotions was mentioned in the Moonbase in just in one scene, but the rest, it just gets along with the plot, and that was just pretty much it. And obviously, as I mentioned before, the Cybermen looks really scarier here compared to they were in the Moonbase. Sorry, in the 10th planet, so I think that's a point to the Cybermen. So the cliffhangers of this story, I would say, were very suspenseful and they were rather brilliant as well. For example, I liked episode 1 cliffhanger where Jamie was delirious and then he just obviously because he was playing messing around and he ends up getting hurt, and then he wakes up and he sees the Cyberman. He obviously Jamie being from the 1700s, he immediately thinks that this is his pipe or the McLaren the Phantom Piper. I think he's sort of the Grim Reaper of the Scots. I'm not even sure. I need to read up on that. But yeah, he was just like, the Phantom Piper gets away from me, and he was delirious as well. I mean, Fraser Hines, even though he doesn't do much in this story, I mean, he actually did the scene very well, and I commend him for that. And also, episodes 2 cliffhanger, I really liked as well, with the Doctor noticing that there were people falling ill because of the sugar, and the Cybermen have infected, and then the Doctor realizing that the Cybermen have actually been hiding inside the medical in the sick bay, and then they're looking around to see if there's any Cybermen. You just see one of them just pop out of their beds and just about to attack the Doctor, Ben, Polly, and some of the Moonbase workers there, such as Hobby and the others. I mean, that was a really good cliffhanger. It was obviously Space Adventure Part 3 playing as well. That's actually one of my favorite cliffhangers of Doctor Who ever. So now on to the characters and the acting. I definitely feel that the Moonbase is Patrick Troughton's best performance yet, as at this point I think Troughton is definitely more comfortable here, and I think he set it in rather nicely compared to the really rubbish Underwater Menace and the Highlanders, which I actually enjoyed, but obviously Patrick Troughton was actually being a bit silly in both of those stories. But I think this is the story where you actually get to see a more serious side of the Doctor, of the second Doctor, and I really liked his Corners of the Universe speech in episode 2. I mean, it definitely further establishes his character as obviously the second Doctor is fun-loving at times, a bit silly, a bit goofy, and obviously you definitely see a more serious side to him. Don't judge by appearances. The Doctor might look a bit silly. Obviously, he looks like a space hobo, but actually, he is very clever, and he'll just find ways to just kick your ass without you even having to know. Then obviously the scene late after the Corners of the Universe speech, we see the Doctor going back to his goofy side, just pretty much stalking the other Moonbase workers, like collecting like stuff off the shoe, and I think he even managed to remove one of the shoes of one of the workers, and started experimenting with it. I mean, that was quite funny as well. I mean, obviously we get to see more seriousness from Troughton's Doctor, and further later on in his tenure. I also liked how the Doctor and Polly bonded here. I mean, I actually liked the conversation with the Doctor and Polly, how the Doctor was telling her about his doctorate he got in Glasgow in 1888. And I liked how it's so soon afterwards, Polly was like, Doctor, because of your doctorate you've gotten, do you think it will be applicable in this 2017? And the Doctor's like, what? Of course it is. Speaking of Polly, she actually really impressed me in this story. I mean, she actually contributes to a big part, coming up with how to deal with the Cybermen with the nail varnish, and the various chemicals. I mean, that was pretty much the most Polly has pretty much done. Has pretty much contributed ever since she joined the TARDIS back in the War Machines. And I mean, yeah, even though we did get to, I really wish we did see more of Polly actually doing a bit more in this episode. But obviously because of the plot, because there were a few Cybermen that were inside the Moonbase, and after they were dealt with, the other Cybermen were just pretty much outside. And obviously the Cybermen outside the Moonbase, they were pretty much attacking the Moonbase itself. I mean, including this scene, I think they even dented one of the, I think the Moonbase dome, and people were like gasping for air. And actually, speaking of the Doctor and Polly, I actually liked how the Doctor was actually caring for Polly, even though she was like gasping for breath and stuff like that. But yeah, Ben, he does a good chunk as well by stopping the Cybermen as well. But Jamie, as I mentioned before, the scene in episode 1 / episode 2 where he was like, "Get away from me, Papa! I'm not coming with you. Get away from me! Get away from me!" I mean, that's what he pretty much does in this story. But I'll get to him, get to more on Jimmy later. The side characters were good as well. I mean, I liked Roger Benrod. The Frenchman was obviously, you can obviously tell he was French because of that stupid thing he was wearing around his neck. And obviously he was working alongside Hobson, the leader of the Moonbase. I think Hobson was really well written, including the rest of the stuff. I mean, Hobson, he didn't really hassle the Doctor too much. I mean, he just allowed the Doctor to just get on with what he was doing, because obviously he was actually threatening to remove the Doctor despite they were all under quarantine because of the virus. He was just like telling everyone just to like Ben, Doctor, Polly, and Jimmy, if I don't care, you have virus or no virus, I'm kicking you out. And obviously he understands, he realizes how severe this issue is for the Cybermen, and then he decides to allow him to stay. I mean, Hobson, he doesn't really make harsh decisions. He makes some fair decisions, because obviously he's stressed with the whole virus situation, and he doesn't really want any of his workers to get harmed. I mean, I think he's a 180 to General Cutler, who we see in the 10th Planet. Obviously, Cutler being American or Canadian, he was this rough American, pretty much insulting everyone else, and he didn't really give a damn, about the Doctor, Ben, and Polly. He just wanted his son back. But when here, Hobson, he was actually quite, he even when he sees the Doctor for the first time, he's not like, he doesn't really hold a gun at them. He's just like, "Who are you?" and just allows the Doctor to get on with what was going on in the Moonbase. So as I mentioned before, episodes 1 and 3 are animated because they're missing, and in my opinion, the animation of this story is beautiful. It's done by Planet 55, and I believe this is the best animation they've done. And I mean, it's a huge improvement from the 10th Planet animation, which was quite good as well, but this one was really, I mean, the Moonbase animation was a step up, I would say the least. It was quite good. It was quite, I like the shots, they were loyal to the telesnaps, even though they did add a few shots in there. I mean, really made the story realistic, despite the animations. And obviously, I liked how they made the Cybermen look scary, and obviously because it's animated, I think the animated version of the Cybermen actually looked more scary than the live action surviving footage of the Cybermen. And I will definitely say that Planet 55 are the best animators for Doctor Who, and I can't wait to see. Obviously, they've gone under, but I think they've come back with Big Finish, and they're going to animate Fury from the Deep, so whenever that comes out, I can't wait for that. So now on to the thoughts of this story. My main issue, once again, is with Jamie. Same as the Underwater Menace, because Jamie doesn't really do much in that story. And obviously, in the Moonbase, he doesn't really do much as well. I mean, I think he hurts himself and is taken to the sick bay and sees the Cyberman. He's delirious, and then after the Cyberman goes away, he just pretty much remains in bed with Polly feeding him water. And then episode 3, he recovers, almost gets into a bit of a disagreement with Ben over how to deal with the Cybermen, and then after that they just make up, and then after that Jamie just pretty much shoved to the back burner, doesn't really do much. And obviously I do have an issue with the pacing as well. I mean, as much as the Moonbase is a really good story, but it does suffer from some pacing issues. I mean, such as I did find the first 2 episodes to be rather slow, but then obviously episode 3 it picked up and actually kept me going, and then episode 4 it did pick up the pace from there, but it pretty much just fell in the bit of the middle of episode 4, and then the episode ended, and then the story ended. But nonetheless, it's an amazing story, and I'll give the Moonbase an 8 out of 10. My next review will be the Macra Terror and Dr. No, so be aware of those reviews coming up soon. Thanks for watching this channel. Let me know what you thought of the Moonbase, of this review. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and please like my other videos. Check for the telesnaps and how to help with Black Lives Matter in the description box I'll leave below. So thanks for watching, guys. See you later.